Greetings. Welcome to the Evidence and Reasons for the Christian Faith video channel. I'm Salvador Cordova, and it's a pleasure being here with you this evening. I don't have that much material today, and I did think about inviting some people to join the chat, but I really was a little bit tired today. I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to manage a big meeting. But I'd like to thank everyone who's joined us, and I can't believe that there are 10 people actually waiting. So just some announcements on the channel. This channel is focused on reaching out to other Christians that are interested in evidence and reasons for the Christian faith, or Christians who are sitting on the fence, or doubting Thomases. That's especially the group that I look toward. In my 21 years of debating the other side, particularly on creation evolution issues, I don't think that my arguments persuaded one evolutionist. It says in Proverbs, correct a fool and he'll hate you. Well, if that's been the case, that I've corrected some of these guys and they're fools, they've hated me more and more as each year has passed by. There's some people I've been debating on and off these 21 years, and they seem to have resented me more each year. The more that I learned, the more that I studied school. Some of them knew me when I didn't have graduate degrees in physics and biology, and they would just browbeat me. But I noticed they started to resent it the more schooling that I got under my belt. And, now that I'm starting to publish, actually in biology journals, I'm sure they're really hating me now. So I just wanted to point out, I'm a little bit negative on the value of debate, except for advertising. It's maybe good advertising. I don't think it is good for education. What I mean by debate, I'm referring to these short debates like what you see on Modern Day Debate or some of these other channels where people just get up for about 90 minutes and state their case. And one side could be using some pretty sketchy tactics. They could just spew garbage and ask irrelevant questions, and then kind of get the other side a little bit off balance. Because recently this week someone asked me just irrelevant questions, and I didn't know what to say. It was just on some side chat, and I didn't answer, and they said, "You didn't answer my question," and they just kept harping on me. And I said, "Can you repeat your question?" And I don't remember what they said. So then I started asking them questions. And when I noticed they weren't answering, I got on their case and they left. I got on their case and I said, gee, that was a pretty disgusting exchange. And one of the cohorts of this individual I tossed out of the channel. So let me give greetings to everyone. There is Patrick Alexander, Donald Jacobson. There's Janet Duttridge and Christian Northam and Godzilla Freak. Greetings all, especially to my brothers and sisters in the Lord Jesus Christ. So today's topic is Brandolini's law. Now, I put a link to the Wikipedia version, and it's a little bit vulgar, so I'll give you the kind of my cleaned up, sanitized, family-friendly version. It takes 40 times more effort. To refute a falsehood than to state one. That's in a debate, in a short format debate. What I'd call a long format debate, one that can last a year, that's a text exchange, that sort of stuff can be still the case, but at least one side has the chance of possibly prevailing. And that was definitely the case with kind of a internet debate. I mean, a battle of YouTubes. It wasn't really a formal debate. Dave Farina spewed about 20 minutes of garbage on his channel, trashing one of the top chemists in the world, James Tour. By the way, if there's any doubt that he's a top chemist, recently he was called to testify before the United States Congress on graphene chemistry and its impact on future technology. So the guy is recognized as being bright. He worked for a Nobel Prize winner by the name of Richard Smalley. He introduced Hugh Ross. And by the way, even though I'm a young Earth creationist, Hugh Ross, his organization helped me through when I nearly left the faith. And for that reason, I mean, he was able to reach out to me because at the time I was an old Earth creationist. He had the right arguments that helped me through, not with regard to old Earth. He had really good biology arguments. Those biology arguments impressed James Tour and also Ross's other views, brought him to Richard Smalley. Richard Smalley was kind of a bitter atheist. So Richard Smalley was James Tour's boss, and he became a Christian. Richard Smalley won the Nobel Prize, and then he contracted cancer. He went home to be with the Lord around 2005. Before he went home to be with the Lord, he was proclaiming that Darwin was wrong, that there is a creator. God bless him for that. Now, his timeline is different than mine, but that he went from atheist to old Earth creationist, and he believed in Jesus Christ. That's what counts. I would hope that for all of us, that the only requirement is that we believe in Jesus. God forbid that all of us are required to have absolutely perfect theology and having no mistakes in our understanding of the Bible. I shudder to think how many of us would actually make it through the pearly gates if God didn't overlook some of our mistakes and misunderstandings. And so God rest his soul. And I'm trusting that Richard Smalley is somewhere with the Lord smiling down upon us. And so that's a little bit about James Tour. Brilliant man. He had a vision of Jesus Christ. He was he was motivated to start seeking after the Lord. He was a kid from Brooklyn. He was in his, I believe, his first year at school studying chemistry. Someone shared the gospel with him and at a laundromat, and he began to be convicted of his sins. And he thought about it, and he was there in his dorm room accepting the Lord. And in that moment, he had a visitation from Jesus. He said he didn't ever want Jesus to leave him from that point on. So fast forward to today, what happened? Dave Farina was mocking James Tour for his love of Jesus. This is becoming very common in our culture. And Jesus said, people, if you're persecuted, be glad, because your reward in heaven is great. And so I think very highly of James Tour, and it was rather disturbing to hear someone so openly mock Christians like Dave Farina. And also equally troubling was all his fan club there on his channel just cheering Dave Farina on. So there was a lot of that trash talking. But then Dave started to say stuff about abiogenesis, trying to defend the theory. Took him 20 minutes to spew out an enormous amount of garbage. And a little history on him. I will be doing a presentation with Rob Stadler on April 30th, because when the other part, I was invited to a debate. It was John Maddox and myself. I didn't realize it was really targeting John Maddox, not me. But then it was going to be Nathan, Digital Gnosis Nathan, and James Fodor, I believe. Anyway, I just suggested, hey, John, just as a backup, in case you're not able to go, I'd be happy to have either Dr. James Carter, who is a professor of organic and biochemistry and a creationist, or Rob Stadler, who has a PhD from MIT and Harvard in biomedical engineering, what millions of people are alive today because of his inventions. He has 140 patents. The guy is really accomplished. He co-authored a book with Dr. Change Tan. That's another story. Change Tan, she's appeared on this channel. She is an Ivy League PhD in, I think it's some chemistry field. She was a physical organic chemist. A Nobel Prize winner by the name of George Smith encouraged her to become a professor in molecular biology. So she's going to actually use her chemical knowledge to do molecular cell biology. And she's a Harvard postdoc. So the two of them wrote this book called The Stairway to Life. It has to be the best. Probably one of the people have asked me, what's your favorite ID book? That would be probably at the top, Stairway to Life. Maybe my favorite, you all may laugh, but if people ask, what's your favorite ID video? I'd say at the top is Alien Intrusion by Gary Bates. It ties creationism and the topic of demons and UFOs all in one video. It's one of the best. I mean, that's just my personal. You all can list what you like. Did I see In His Image here? No, I don't see him. Oh, he's here. Emery, can you tell me if you have time? If you do, what I'm going to do is I'll send you a link to the stream, because it is kind of hard to do a monologue, and you have the gift of gab. I don't. And maybe we could have a discussion. Same for Patrick Alexander, if you'd like to join, just say so. I'll monitor the chat to see if any of you guys want to join in. And if I miss it, just bring it to my attention. So where was I? I was talking about Change Tan and Rob Stadler and my favorite ID books. Anyway, Rob Stadler saw something on Professor Dave's channel and pointed out to him he was wrong about his chemistry. Okay, so quote unquote, Professor Dave is not even a real professor. He's a fake professor. He just uses that. Okay, so hang on. I'm gonna send an invite to Emery here. He is also known as In His Image, and please feel free to visit his blog. I can't multitask. Some people can type and talk at the same time. I'm not one of them. Oh yeah, someone agrees with Alien Intrusion movie is one of my favorite videos. It is a creationist. It has creationist elements in it, definitely. So where was I headed with this? Anyway, Rob Stadler appeared on in the comment section of Dave's video and pointed out Dave was wrong. Dave banned Rob Stadler from his channel. You would think if someone were interested in science, you'd at least let the guy have a little bit of a say. Dave banned him. And but that wasn't the end of it. Dave decided to go after one of the top chemists in the world. And you know something? Maybe he was counting on James Tour being too busy to deal with someone like Dave. And Dave thought he could get away with it. I was told, though, by the producer of the Abiogenesis series that featured James Tour, what had happened is the coronavirus had kind of locked down James Tour's traveling. You know, there's been all these travel restrictions. It just makes it really difficult to get around. And so James Tour had a lot of time to be able to do something like this. And so he produced, people had notified him what Dave Farina said, and he produced the series. Now think about it. This was 20 minutes of garbage by Dave Farina. And James Tour, a world-class chemist, spent about 10 hours refuting him. 10 hours on video. I would guess that that's maybe for every hour that he talked, he probably spent at least 4 hours research, probably more. And so let's just go with that figure. I'm going to suggest 4 hours, 4 hours. So that's maybe 50 hours that he invested in this. 50 hours to refute Dave Farina for 20 minutes of what Dave said. This was a 15 episode series that got spread out over about 6 weeks. So that's what I mean by Brandolini's law. And by the way, Dr. Tour, he did a good job. Everyone say amen. Everyone on our side said that was just phenomenal. Sorry, Emery's going to try to join. Apologies if I forgot we're not on StreamYard. Oh well. If not, don't worry about it, Emery. So 50 hours. Okay, so maybe this is Emery right here. Hello, Emery.
Hey, Sal, can you hear me?
Yes. And people in the chat, please feel free to tell us how the audio is coming through.
Yeah, I can mess around with my mic if people can't hear me for whatever reason.
So thanks for joining. So I was just pointing out, this is the way. This can be this Brandolini's law can be used by both sides, and I think sometimes the creationist side doesn't realize sometimes they're actually not making good arguments, but it may look like they've won a debate because of some of their tactics. And so there are some creationists I just won't watch, even though we're on the same side. It's just like, I'm not really sure that their arguments were that good, but they are very good at maybe just making the other side just, they throw stuff on the table and they just use some tactics, like asking them questions and then saying, you didn't answer my question. You still didn't, and they'll just keep harping. And it was an irrelevant question. It had no substance to it. And then they'll just claim victory because the other side didn't answer. And I've seen that. So it applies to both sides. But I guess my point is, and this has relation to maybe how I'll be conducting business myself, is that debates are not going to be the vehicle that I'm going to be trying to encourage Christians. It might only be the vehicle to let them know I exist. That's about it. I'll try to do a good job on a debate, but I remember being in a debate with T-Jump, and I thought he was just crushed, but the guy just kept going, and just like he would never back down. Didn't matter how stupid something that he would say, he would just keep repeating it. I'm like, how am I going to deal with this? I'll give a specific example. He said, well, with abiogenesis, it just takes millions of years and it starts to accumulate, all the improvements. And then I cited a specific paper in 2012 about the asphalt paradox. And it really did refute his point, but then he just kept repeating it. And I'm like, it's going to take 10 hours to explain why this asphalt paradox that has been published in peer review refutes his point. And I just didn't have 10 hours in that short debate format. And so he got away with a lot of stuff, and people were congratulating him for a good show. They congratulated me too, which I'm grateful for. But I'm like, I think if I were a creationist, I'd like to hear, and I'm on the fence, I'd like to hear the full reasons and to hear the ideas develop, versus, two guys saying, yes, it is. And the other guy saying, no, it's not. And then the other guy says, yes, it is. That's what ends up happening. Essentially, it's not very substantive. The thing about the way Dr. Tour did his takedown of Dave Farina, and I really believe it wasn't just because of Dave Farina. I think he was trying to call out the entire abiogenesis industry. This was just kind of the catalyst to finally get him, Dr. Tour, to just just speak his heart, because Dave Farina actually articulated a lot of the talking points and a lot of what the papers were stating, or should I say misstating and misleading. And, Dave Farina was just a proxy for the larger, what I personally consider a now fraudulent industry. But, and so that's the point. In these short debates, nothing gets settled. There's sometimes no further clarity, and it ends up being kind of recycled stuff. So, Emery, your thoughts? Thank you for joining.
Yeah, bear with me tonight, Sal. I'm a little distracted. I'm trying to write a paper, and I got some stuff going on, but I can hop in for a little bit. This is just the stuff that sometimes gets spewed out. It's just, it takes, case in point. Last week, it took me over an hour, close to an hour and a half, to walk through the garbage that Sentinel Apologetics spewed in 15 minutes, because I talked for probably a good 15 minutes of the time. Like, this is just, the more garbage that you can spew, the harder it is for somebody who actually knows what they're talking about to clean it up.
Exactly.
It's just incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And so, well, thank you for that. And I had some notes, like, okay, pertains to me. And, not that I expect a lot of the people that come to this channel listen to my critics, and I'm glad. I know that they probably wouldn't want to when they hear some of the stuff that goes on in some of these other channels. It's not very edifying. It's dull and repetitive. I think there have been several shows and discussions throughout the net over the years with, just character assassinations of me, Slimy Sal, liar. They put me in the Encyclopedia of American Loons right there with Sean Hannity. I'm just laughing, as if these guys don't have anything better to do with their time. And, I almost have a weekly show now, just trashing me, trying to anyway. It's not that they ever do anything substantive, technically, as far as I know. I just ignore them at this point. But I will say,
look at it this way, Sal. You're living rent free in their heads. You're living rent free in their heads.
So I did want to say, but there are exceptions on the other side. Dapper Dino, Erica, Dr. Dan, at least when I interact with them directly, they have said they've treated me well. And
same. So I've never had any issues with those guys. I haven't really interacted that much with Dr. Dan, but the few conversations I've had with Erica, she's always treated me well. I know she doesn't particularly like me because I've heard the stream where she bashed me because of my social views positions, but that's her problem, not mine. But that's fine. She's always treated me great, so that's all I really care about.
Yeah, David Neff. Yeah, David Neff.
Yeah, I've not interacted with Neff a whole lot, but he's always treated me well. Yeah. Andrew Cummings, same deal. He's always treated me great. That's Rational Empiricist. He goes by both. He's always treated me really well. So there are people on the other side who are not toxic.
Yeah,
there's always going to be toxic people on both sides. Like you're always going to have a couple on each side where it's like, oh, do we have to acknowledge this person is on our side? Like, ugh.
Yeah,
and that's both sides. Like, I'm sure that some of the egos have to acknowledge some of these guys. Like, really?
Yeah, I got kicked off an ID weblog because I wasn't apparently polemic enough. I was very nice, I was very civil to other scholars who behaved civilly, and I don't want to generalize the other side, but so where was I? Oh, where I was headed. So just think if for every 20 minutes I had to spend 50 hours to refute, hypothetically, I was on a Reddit. I was on, this has to deal with people if they start making accusations, why doesn't Sal engage as critics? Okay, let's say I have 80 critics on Reddit. I've I blocked them. 80 people were demanding my attention, and they were so toxic, I just blocked them. I think my list is now approaching 100. So now let's say 100 people are going to have their 20 minutes to spew garbage, and it's going to take me 50 hours per person. Okay, so we have 100 times 50 hours. Let me see, 100 times 50. I should be able to do this in my head, but
5,000.
5,000 hours. 5,000 hours. So if people say Sal's unwilling to face his critics, it's like, yeah, I don't have 5,000 hours to spare. And the other thing is, one thing I noticed, some of these trash talk dumpster fires, no one listens to it. And God forbid that the Christians actually waste their time when they could be edified in other ways listening to dumpster fires. So maybe that's my point, because the topic I've been getting a lot of requests for debate. And I think I might be getting to the point where I'm going to have to say, I'm going to have to start saying no, because for one, getting up on modern day debate, which is where people are asking me, like, given that over 21 years, I've not seen one guy from the other side convert, is it worth my time? And given that I've, in my estimate, 90% in modern day debate, 90 or even higher than 90% are atheists, what's the point? It's more important for me to be able to reach out to Christians who are on the fence, or who are not on the fence, but people just want to solidify their faith. And that's kind of the message I wanted to give tonight. I mean, I think a lot of people understand the situation, but I guess I just wanted to set the record straight. If the critics are saying, why won't Sal engage me? It's like, well, I just get Brandolini's law, for one. But on the other hand, you see me engage with the other side. We'll have a conversation. We'll disagree. It's not going to be a debate. We'll have an exchange for information. I'm fine with that. If I write a paper and there's a qualified critic, he's welcome to come. But some random anonymous troll, like, forget it. If you're a recognized college professor, you're welcome. And that's going to be
and you're not a jerk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, but PZ Meyer probably shouldn't apply.
Oh, yeah. So just consider this, if you're a qualified critic, you're welcome. And no disrespect to other people who may have legitimate questions. I just, I'll invite them like I invited Andrew Cumming, because I felt he had questions that people wanted to hear answered. They might be the same sort of questions a Christian who's going through a biology curriculum might want to ask. And Andrew said, let's just talk science. He didn't have anything specific. It wasn't a debate. And I'm fine entertaining that on my channel. But if someone clearly just wants to take me down, and, he may use dishonest tactics, like he'll just ask questions. He might ask 10 questions and he'll say, you didn't answer my question. Just like, well, like which one? You gave me 10. And then there's these other tactics where you're explaining something, and Rob Rowe pulled this stunt on me. I was responding to a question, and then he interrupted me. He said, you're not answering the question. I said, well, I was in the process of it. And then he was accusing me of dishonesty because I didn't finish my words. I'm just like, yeah, I know how this is played out. So when your blood was boiling, I was like, yeah, Emery, I'm sorry for you, but this is how he does business.
And that's what I was trying to warn you about, Sal. Like because if the presenter is like that, the fans are like that.
Yeah.
And he wants to dialogue with me on Dapper Dino's show. That's not happening at least until after grad school, because I can't afford to raise my blood pressure like that again.
Yeah.
But I'm not even 100% sure, having watched back parts of that I'm even going to want to do it, because, again, Brandolini's law.
Yeah. And so maybe what I'm throwing out there is I'm still thinking through this whole thing, because we do want to engage their arguments. We absolutely want to engage their arguments. So this isn't running away from their arguments, but I'm not going to waste time being on some stage that Christians aren't watching, that only atheists, it's just an atheist fest and a peanut gallery where you're there kind of like the Christian martyrs in the Colosseum. It's like, no, unless I'm forced to, I'm not going to. I want, there are better ways. And I just wanted to set the record straight. So maybe the way to do this is, if a Christian hears something that they need an answer to because they heard it in a debate and they didn't feel the Christian side made a good response, I welcome that sort of. They can present these questions here, and we can think about it, because we can think about it calmly. We can do the research, because someone can pull a Dave Farina and just throw a paper that maybe someone hasn't heard, and someone like James Tour will have the time to go back and look, read the paper, and evaluate it. I mean, I can't imagine the amount of time he spent. Farina spent maybe 1 minute spewing on this paper on homochirality. And that paper, James Tour carefully read it, and he also evaluated what Farina had to say. And then he recorded a video. This is like an hour's work for 1 minute of garbage. But he crushed Farina. He pointed out all the mistakes Farina made. Farina didn't even understand the paper. But
I mean, that's what you get when you read an abstract.
Yeah. So an offer to the Christians here, if there are, and I've been grateful to hear the feedback. People are saying, can you talk about this topic? Can you talk about this topic? And actually, I was worried I was going to run out of material, but now I have so many viewer requests. I actually have a pretty substantial backlog, which is good. So, rather than some of these, what I call dumpster fire debates, the questions that are raised are good. And I want to be of service to try to address it. But in a live debate, where all sorts of stunts can be pulled, like Rob Rowe, who professes the name of Christ. He didn't have the courtesy to let me I was trying to respond to his question. And as I was getting to the punchline, he interrupts me. I said, that's kind of sketchy. When your opponent is actually going to make a point and maybe you sense he's going to kill you, you're going to interrupt him. And there's so many of these debate tactics. Farina was using equivocation. There could be a whole talk on sketchy debate tactics. And it's not just debate, it's also rhetoric. People use just outright lies. They'll use circular reason, straw man, equivocation. And unfortunately, I see it in evolutionary literature. The whole discipline's built on it. I know some people really take exception to that, but that's just the truth. Same for the abiogenesis industry. So really let me see what I had some notes on what I was going to say. So I'm just trying to set the record straight. I may or may not accept debates, but I want to engage arguments. And maybe that's just the bottom line. These short dumpster fire debates, I'm not, I'm less interested in. And the other thing is, I don't want to be building my subscriber base of atheists who just want to mock and spam my channel. I know someone's channel got built up real fast, but it was the wrong crowd. And I'm looking to see ways that I could, and I've been asking around. I want to reach out to other Christians, especially those in church that don't know that there are people like us that exist, because there are a lot of churches that don't want to deal with tough topics. I had a very sad experience. Well, I mean, it was good for me, but some guy said, yeah, I'm no longer a Christian. My dad's an elder at a church. And I said, what happened? He said, I was asking about Noah's flood, and it troubled him. and he's reading some stuff on atheist blogs criticizing Noah's flood. And I said, "You mean no one tried to give you a counter argument in terms of science?" He said, "No." And he said, "I lost my faith about 5 months ago. I'd like to believe." And it really, he's saying it, he has a lot of family members he's going to let down when he, yeah. I said, "So no one's even talked." I said, so no sermons, no Sunday schools on the topic of Noah's flood. And so I was the first Christian.
That a lot.
Yeah, I was the first Christian to say, okay, I'm not insisting that you agree with everything I say, but I'm going to give you my view. And I started showing him stuff from like Drama in the Rocks. And he said, "That's really interesting. I didn't know that the sediments would segregate like that." And I got him to think. He said, "That was really interesting." Sadly, he's never contacted me again, but I hope I've given him food for thought. But what's really sad is you would think that when we have I guess the Catholics use the word sacrament or the ritual of baptism that is tied to Noah's flood, that we would have a little bit more discussion in the church about it. And so I want to reach those people, and being on Modern Day Debate, I may or may not. Now, I want to acknowledge Mindbends here in One Cow Stampede. They found me on Reddit, I believe. One Cow's my good friend from Reddit, and I'm very grateful that some people have found me through Reddit and found our channel, because then they can meet people like Emery and James Carter and Rob Stadler and Change Tan, and I'm hoping to have even more of some of my colleagues here. So how long have we been going? It's about 37 minutes. This is longer than I thought. That's really what I mostly had to say. This will probably be a relatively short show. I might go through the comments. The side chat's been really active. So if you had some thoughts, Emery, and I know you're trying to finish a paper.
Well, that's fine. Yeah. Unfortunately, the seeker-friendly model has really done some damage, Janet. And I told this story on somebody's stream recently, but a seeker-friendly church basically told a speaker from AIG he couldn't speak against gay marriage because they had somebody who was gay or transgender attending the church, so they couldn't say that was wrong. And the pastor openly apologized for him being there when the next week, and they pulled his papers, his presentations down from the church website. So yeah, I mean, there's a point where we want people to come to church, but we don't want to have them come to church and feel good. If they come to church, for honestly, this should probably be true for Christians to a certain extent too, but particularly non-believers. If they come to church and they feel comfortable, like not that someone treats them badly, but if they don't hear a sermon that makes them uncomfortable in their sin, then what's the point of having the church?
Amen.
Amen. I mean, I'm not trying to be too mean here. I get people upset with me when I go on this stuff, but Patrick, Hillsong's not a church. But anyway, now that I've triggered the entire internet.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the seeker-sensitive model basically it does to a certain extent turn the church into entertainment. And you're right, Janet. Sometimes people need to see it for themselves rather than you tell them. Unfortunately, but I mean, with a lot of churches where it's like that, and it's unfortunate. There's a lot of churches where they just won't talk about apologetics.
A lot, like say most.
Yeah, probably 9. Even in the conservative churches. So, I mean, even in conservative churches, you won't have apologetics, or you'll have people from BioLogos coming in, and that's not apologetics either. That's syncretism.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm not in the best mood in person, so I'm just gonna like drop bombs and make Sal clean up the mess.
no. This is yeah. Sal, no. This is how I feel as well, and you know, because I've been debating this. I said, okay, what are we going to? I had a conversation in my private apologetics group, and I don't think anything is confidential here that I can't share. And I was just saying, I don't think it's my place to lobby to try to get a pastor removed because he's not supporting apologetics. Partly because the next guy who comes along might have the same policy. And there was a case also in my church where Occoquan Bible Church, and this is now public knowledge, so I'm not saying anything that's not known, but the pastor there was having something on biblical counseling, which I have problems with. I'm for biblical stuff, and I'm for counseling that is biblical. But what is advertised as biblical counseling, I don't think is actually, I don't think it's biblical, or I don't think it's very good counseling. And the pastor was a big advocate of this, and I found out to my horror he was trying to make money off the congregation through his quote unquote counseling services. And he gave a talk on obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, I happened to be, studying biology, and I understood something about neuroscience and brain scans, and I could actually see, I could actually see obsessive compulsive disorder physiologically manifest in the brain scans. You could see it; it's visual. There's a physiological component to it. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't lifestyle issues that can, thankfully, if someone actually tries to fight it, they can change their physiology, which is a very interesting thing. But he went up there, and I don't remember what he said, but none of it made sense. It was a force fit of trying to use the scripture, and there's not, where does it say in the Bible obsessive compulsive disorder? And so you could see he had to be grabbing stuff that was from nowhere. His biology was all wrong. And I tried to just gently correct him, and of course he didn't accept it, but I wasn't going to be forceful. I said, all right, Lord, it's not my place. I have logs in my own eye. I'm not going to try to remove the speck. But something hit me. I said, if this guy can't be, reasonable when he's just presented with the evidence and that he's not qualified to understand this, God help him God help the couple he tries to do marriage counseling for. And I don't know why that hit, I don't know why that thought came into my head, but I was very sincere. I was saying, God, it's not my place. Help your church, because this is not good. But, there's only so much that I can do. And I've been going through the Bible and the passages of Samuel where, David could have had the power to kill Saul, but he said, I'm not going to do that to the Lord's anointed. So even when it's in your power to do something, you don't always do it. And even when the guy's a bad actor, you don't always take him out. And in this case, I said, well, one, I doubt I could do anything anyway. And I just leave this in your hands. And that was it. The next year I found out he got kicked out of church because the police came to his house because his wife called the police because he was beating their children and her. And that was the end of him. And so, yeah, I sensed something was wrong, and God took care of his church. So what's the point of me saying all this? We may acknowledge some of the bad stuff going on in churches. It's not my role to try to unseat the pastors. I'm going to leave that in God's hands. Or to unseat seminaries. I'm gonna leave this in the Lord's hands, because we can only be responsible for ourselves and our behavior, and very limited influence on the rest of society. I mean, that may be hard to swallow, because everyone who does want to see change wants to really do a lot, but there's only so much that we can do. And, reading going through the book of Samuel, I'm just like, yeah, David had, even then, God gave him a lot of opportunity, but also God gave him the wisdom not to act on his own, and to let some things in the hands of the Lord. So with what's going on in the churches, I've decided, okay, I can be responsible for how I live my life and care for the people around me and be faithful in a few things. And so some of those few things are my apologetics group, my private one that meets every week, and then this channel, and then to be of service to people with trying to put good content. And that's about it. I'm not going to go on a campaign saying, we got to unseat all these people. I mean, I'm happy to point out what they're saying is bad. But I'm not going to be advocating you necessarily throw out your pastor, because sadly, you don't know who's going to replace him at this point.
Mm.
And so, these are decisions that I'm facing even in my own local church. What I do when I'm not satisfied with this or that. And this isn't a new problem. I mean, what if I were in the Church of Corinth back in the New Testament days? What would I do? Paul didn't say, okay, all the good members just leave this church. I'd have to go back, because that's an interesting case study on what to do when you're a member of a really dysfunctional church. And I would presume for geographic reasons, they didn't have a lot of options like we do now, because we're so mobile. So that's about all that's mostly what I had to say. Let me scan the comments, because I thought I saw some. I wanted to thank Patrick Alexander for the C.S. Lewis quote. I really wanted to thank him. And C.S. Lewis said, if Christianity was something we were making up, of course we could make it easier, but it's not. We cannot compete in simplicity with people who are inventing religions. How could we? We are dealing with fact. Of course, anyone can be simple if he has no facts to bother about. C.S. Lewis. I want to give thank you, Patrick Alexander. I may make an entire show on that, because there is a variety of intelligent design that's promoted by Eastern religions. So they are ID friendly, but it is exactly the sort of religion that you would make up if you wanted to have your own religion. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to cover, it was something that, how did I find this book? I was reading something by Al Mohler on divorce. I just stumbled on it. And we have some issues with Al Mohler, but some of his writings and some of his conservative stands were really spot on. And he pointed out, he called out some people, like I think his name is Arterburn. He's a Christian marriage and dating guru, but he's been divorced 3 times. And he said, what's wrong with us? The Bible is not very happy about divorce. And how is it that Christians are just flocking to this guy who's been divorced 3 times and looking to him for dating and marriage advice? I mean, I can kind of understand from the standpoint. It's like, oh yeah, I failed twice. Don't do this. Just learn from my miserable mistakes. But still, it looked bad. But then Mohler also pointed out this book, Eat, Love, Pray, by I forgot her name. I have the book. It's actually very well in terms of the use of the English language. It is very well written. And I said, yeah, this would be a nice man-made religion. It's exactly, you can be pleasing to God and then you do whatever you want. And Christianity's not that way. And I wanted to thank Patrick Alexander for that. That's more of a side note. That wasn't really anything to do with Brandolini's law. But let me look through the side chat before we shut the stream down. Mine Ben 256, it takes incredible intellectual discipline for a short format debate to be worthwhile. And when it is, it will not demand 2 sides hold a yes-no position steadfastly. Oh, and someone asked, is Farina, quote unquote, Professor Dave? Yes, that's the one and only, quote unquote, Professor Dave. Yeah. Yeah, I think Professor Dave is. I think his channel will continue to go. We'll see. All right, so debates are good for learning how to speak, organizing your thoughts, thinking critically about ideas. Yes, yes, yes. Um, I engage in them, the live short format debates, partly to learn and also to kind of keep my speaking skills up. But I don't look at it as the means that I'm going to reach out to my fellow Christians. In fact, of late, I don't even let other Christians know about my debates. I would rather have them hear me, when I give shows on specific topics. So it does have a place. I call it batting practice. Batting practice. It's not the real game. I rarely watch them myself. All right, and I'm just going to go through this. And yes, Alien Intrusion is one of my favorite creationist video. It was the #1 creationist book and video for 1 year on Amazon. In fact, it hit the top 50 in Amazon, not just in the creationist category, the top 50 in all categories. This is interesting. I suggest debates on the gospel truth. The channel is excellent and the debates are usually very cordial between two self-professed Christians. It is by far my favorite debate channel. No contest. I did not know that. Do you know that?
I know of the gospel truth, and I am vaguely acquainted, very, very vaguely acquainted, with Marvin Wilson, who is the guy who runs it. It does seem to be less toxic than modern day debate, but I think the view counts would be lower. But it is mostly between Christians on various topics. So, like, if there were going to be a discussion on the age of the earth from two Christians, that would be a good place to host it, something like that. Because it would be less toxic, perhaps, than modern day debate.
I would be interested, me and a theistic evolutionist, like someone like Swami Das. I don't know if he'd ever show up, but
Swami Das absolutely loves publicity. So the only people he would debate would be people who have bigger profiles than he does.
Yeah.
Hence why he debated Behe and why he desperately wants to debate Ken Ham.
Yeah. That would be kind of, I don't, I have no opinion on how that would go, but I would like to debate some of these TEs because
you might get somewhere with someone like Cy Gart.
Actually, I of the TEs, he's the most, I consider him almost on our side, especially because of his views on origin of life. But someone like Swami Das, that's exactly what I do not like. And by the way, yeah, I hope people, like you said, I hope some Christians are now regretting that they endorsed his book.
So I'm waiting for Hugh Ross to issue a retraction. I haven't seen it yet.
So Nicholas, Proclaimer of Messiah, thank you very much for giving me that tip. That would be worth it because I don't mean to say I will invest. I have witnessed to atheists and agnostics, and thankfully I know specifically of one individual who got converted. In part, she told me later that I helped her become a Christian. And that was very rewarding. I'd do it again. I talked to 1,000 atheists to have that one convert. And this was over a 12-year period. I was delighted, but it wasn't through debates. It was just through just friendship type interactions. No, nothing, anything forceful. But she was the one person who'd witnessed the miracle, and it was very easy. obviously the Lord was working in her life and softening her heart before she met me. And she was troubled by that miracle, and she couldn't get it out of her system. And she asked about, origins. And she said, is it possible this is a miracle? I said, oh, yeah. Yeah, life is a miracle. And that's a whole nother story. So good stuff. The one things, there's a lot of concordance among Yek and Oyek. Hugh Ross emphasizes the occult connection to UFOs, and so does Michael Heiser. So, and we can talk about the relationship with that at some point, because I use a lot of ID arguments. I love the ID arguments. If people that have seen some of my material that talk about the difficulty of evolution, I will grant, for the sake of argument, the mainstream viewpoint. And so even young Earth creationists like Rob Stadler and Change Dan, I think Rob Stadler is a young Earth creationist. Their book is actually, they assume, from the sake of argument, they grant the long time scales. They don't start with any biblical premise. They'll say, we think our case is so good against origin of life. We'll grant you a lot of parameters, and origin of life will still fail without a miracle. Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay. So MindBend 256, One Cow Stampede. One Cow Stampede actually wrote me because I'd done research on radiometric dating while I was in grad school at Johns Hopkins. And I had like a 40-page student term paper that I wrote to try to save my grade because I wasn't doing so well in my solid state physics class. And I covered issues with electrical and chemical means of changing nuclear structure, which is relevant to this question. So you're somewhere on my list of things. I will have a show, God willing, on that. And it'll bring to light, because I'll also point out the sort of experiments we might be able to do to really get some breakthroughs. So let me just try to scroll through some more comments. There is Jesus Garcia, welcome. It's great having you here. Honesty Angel, it's always nice. And please forgive me if I miss someone. Oh my goodness, now that I'm just scrolling through, I know I'm gonna probably forget to acknowledge someone. Godzilla Freak is here, and Janet is here. Janet. Oh, Ramen. I better acknowledge Ramen.
Every poor college student in the world acknowledges ramen. I'm sorry, Robin.
Okay, Terry, long time no see. Former hard atheist here. My belief in science showed me the cell and saw that divine intelligence and saw that divine intelligence there. Nothing else works. Feels good to be back in the fold. Nice side benefits. Blessing to all. God bless you. Thank you so much for your comment. That was worth it for me to make the stream just to get that comment. Wow. Well, when I nearly left the Christian faith, it was the hard sciences, because that's all I had. That's all I had at the time. And, I said, Lord, I'd like to trust the Bible, but can you give me something outside the Bible to help me believe? And a lot of people prayed for me. And so it was my scientific training, and my conviction that life has been created miraculously gets stronger every day. And James Tour series really solidified that, like an order of magnitude, because he said some things that I was not aware of. Okay, so someone talked about induced decay. And by the way, I mean, this is great, because this is how I can, even though that there are things that are not exactly on topic, that's fine, because this is how I find out what some of the next topic should be. Okay. Thanks, Patrick. And Patrick, thanks again for that C.S. Lewis quote. God willing, I will make a show specifically on that. You can hear poor intent often when debaters talk about their debates. Often it's just another competition in an attempt to lift up self versus lift up Christ and educate and learn. Thank you. I wanted to say, I'm trying to I'm trying to improve the quality of my shows. Like you could tell, I don't know if you all noticed, I'm using a slightly better camera than before, and little things like that. I'd like to be able to do a little more animation and better graphics, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm working on it, and God willing, I will get back into doing it, educational stuff with chemistry. What comes to mind along those lines is Proverbs 14:4, where there are no oxen, the stable is clean, but there's much strength in the ox. It's like, what kind of proverb is that? That's actually one of my former pastors. That was one of his favorite Old Testament passages, where no oxen are, the stable is clean. Which means if you don't have any oxen, you don't have to deal with the refuse that comes out of them and the waste. But there's a lot of strength in the ox, and my way of saying it in the 21st century is you got to deal with the doo-doo. You got to deal with the doo-doo. And some of that means studying topics that are pretty boring, like chemistry. And so I'm going to dig through the doo-doo with you guys. Sometimes we're going to do some chemistry stuff, and it's going to be boring, but I'm praying you'll be blessed in the process. So yes, Brian Nickel does have interesting stuff. Reddit is a dumpster fire. Yes.
Yeah. The reason I've never made an account on Reddit.
I've gotten so many downvotes, and I'm proud of the fact that I've blocked 100 people who've been trying to get my attention there. This is why professional creationists don't bother engaging in blogs like Peaceful Science. Someone said Sal Slay's Reddit troll so easy. The block feature is really nice. And yes, thank you, Mind Ben. I'm really glad we got to meet. And I'm not going to be able to get through all the comments, but thank you so much for sharing. Oh, okay, John, just for your wardrobe. Just for what it's worth. Kind of off topic. Is anyone familiar with Northrop Frye? No, I never heard the guy. During debates, you're not going to change the mind of your opponent. There might be someone watching whose eyes are open. Yes, absolutely. So none of my opponents have changed. I don't know that I've moved anyone from one side to the other, but I will say people on my side were encouraged. I could sense a feeling of joy when I started to argue certain things. So on Michael Brown is really good at showing what Sal is saying. Debate should be structured in with pure intent. I'm not familiar with the video on Michael Brown, and so I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with it. In my opinion, debates can help people incrementally to come to the truth of Christ. May take a while, but that's okay. So it's not all lost, but need to be wise about how much time and effort. So, people will see me engage in debates. But I guess what I'm trying to communicate, and just again setting the record straight, like I said, that thing with Reddit, 100 people want a piece of me. I just don't have time, and I don't want to be spending 50 hours refuting their garbage for them, spending 20 minutes. I just don't have time. So, again, I'm just setting the record straight. I want to engage the arguments. So if like, say 100 people say, is Sal stupid? And it's like, okay, that's a repeated thing and that's a question. And I'll just say, okay, it doesn't matter. Is Sal slimy? It doesn't matter. What matters is whether Jesus rose from the dead. That's the question at hand. But a lot of Reddit trawling is just that. They'll just throw stuff that's just not relevant. And I mean, there have been practically shows talking about my character and talking about my qualifications. I said, guys, it's already relevant, Anyway, I think there was a whole show, the whole thing, Liar Sal. That was the title of the show, and it went on for 2 hours. I'm just like, okay. So, yes. So I'm just setting the record straight. I'm going to be trying to avoid it except for advertising purposes. My main role in debate is to advertise the channel. Prior to that, it was so that I could have batting practice, that I can engage arguments. And actually, it was to get free of charge editorial review for peer-reviewed work. I'm pleased to say, as the number one YouTube creationist, as voted by, sorry, Emery, as voted by the opposition, I'm probably one of the few YouTube creationists that has gotten peer-reviewed in biology, and I'm a relative newcomer. And part of the reason I've engaged the other side is I was actually trying to get them to give me some free of charge editorial review before submission. So sadly, the stuff that they gave me good review on didn't make it to peer review because we got rejected, but it was still a good experience because I may be writing books now, because I know some of the stuff some of the stuff you've seen on my channel. I feel it's good stuff, like the stuff that I've been doing on independent protein origins. It's because the reason I feel it's confident in it is the other side said, we don't believe that there's universal common ancestry in proteins. I said, you've just made the case I was trying to make, and I don't think creationists know that evolutionists now have practically adopted the orchard model of independent origins for major protein families. I said, don't you realize this is good stuff? So just a lot of self-promotion right there. Sorry. Let's see. And, Sandy Pigeon. Dr. Sandy Pigeon, let me introduce our resident Navy SEAL. Lieutenant Commander, sir, it is an honor, and I'd like to thank you for your service to our country. This Tuesday, Sandy, if you're listening, I haven't had the chance to email you yet. I scheduled you for Tuesday, Tuesday around 8 o'clock, 8:15, and we're going to talk about the Taylor Prism, which I hope you don't mind. I invited you specifically because you had your testimony that was a sermon that changed your life and led to it sparked a journey in your Christian faith. So this is a little advertising for that talk. And our retired Navy SEAL became a Christian, and he went on to seminary, and he got his PhD in ministry education with a specialty in apologetics. So we should be I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Dr. Pigeon and I are planning to have lots of shows in his specialty, which is like church history and other things that are not my specialty. Things like the resurrection and the documents and some of the people that he studied in while he was at Liberty University. So I was talking, interrupting seems to strike atheists as some kind of virtue in these debates instead of what it actually is: impatience, lack of restraint. Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, I think our side does that too. So I wouldn't single them out. That's why,
That's just a bad argument point from both sides. Like
yeah,
both,
yeah.
whichever. If you've got a good, honest interlocutor, you shouldn't have too much of that.
Okay, so this is a good point. Sometimes I despair that I will not be able to sift through evidence and debates and find the truth out of them. I think I've gotten a few things in debates that were new information, but not many points. Um, and I think the thing, at least for me personally, is whatever things were on my heart, that's what I'd actually research. I don't remember actually going to a lot of debates to find answers for the things I was struggling with, like the problem of evil. I've heard people just argue this, and I didn't get it. I never got a satisfying answer from that, or the hiddenness of God. By the way, that's why I made 2 videos that were my take on those issues. So they're go on.
If I can just add something to that real quick, what I would do is, instead of trying to find answers for all of them, look at it and go, okay, which one of these do I think is the biggest issues for me, and prioritize them that way. Now, because if you've got a lot of questions, you can't get to all of them at one time. You can't, because if you just dig in a surface level on each one, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to understand anything. So focus on one, maybe 2, work through. And I have been maligned by certain individuals, and they know who they are, for not being willing to consider challenges to my worldview if they're outside my field of specialty. That's not the argument that I'm going to make. My argument is essentially that take what you view as a large challenge and deal with that first. Prioritize the bigger challenges, and then as you get through, the smaller challenges will seem less challenging once you've dealt with the larger ones.
Yeah, and I have to say, there were 2 things on the table for, as many of you know, about 21 years ago, I nearly left the faith. But I was one of those who was like, I want to stay in the faith, but I need a little bit more inspiration. And there are a lot of Christians like that. There are actually 2 big things I couldn't resolve: the problem of evil and the hiddenness of God. But I hung on, and I said, I'm just going to accept on faith that there's an answer. And God gave me an answer 16 years later that was satisfying to me. And it was in the Bible. It was passages I'd read before, but I never connected the dots. So good point here. Debates. The debate community is incredibly vitriolic. So many intellectual sins are committed there. I got to point something out. We like watching professional sports, and I'll admit I used, the old boxing matches. Even the famous ones in the 70s, I still occasionally watch, because we like to see competition among people. There's a certain drama in it, and so it does appeal to something that's not necessarily so spiritual. I mean, we could put a spiritual spin on it. It's like someone is fighting for the truth here, and we're on his side. But on another level, really, what it is, it's like a sporting event. Sad to say. And
debate is a blood sport.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, there are some people, and I really do respect you. Flash Gordon is one of them. He does not like the sporting industry. Yes, it is very corrupt now, but even before it was corrupt, I think he had issues with it. I don't have as much problem with it, but even ultimate fighting or this mixed martial arts, that's way too much for me. I mean, that really is too close to gladiatorial blood sport for me. it's just a little too, you know, when the guy's knocked down and you start punching him when he's down or kicking him, and just like, yeah, that's just, don't need to go that far, guys. But in debates, I'm finding it does appeal to some of our fleshly. I began to think about it. I said, you know, am I watching this because I'm being spiritually edified, or is this sports entertainment? And like I said, I personally don't have fun with sports entertainment, but you got to recognize it for what it is sometimes. And it may not be the best way to resolve our spiritual questions. Now, that being said, I got to admit, James Tour beating down Dave Farina was sports entertainment for me. Okay. All right. So there you have it. That really was. A lot of us, come on, admit it, guys. A lot of us were just watching to see how badly someone would be beat down. Okay. But there was a lot of good science there. At least it wasn't just all, you know, a dumpster fire. It really was very informative. But, you know, a lot of us on our side this was a little bit of a sporting event. This was kind of like our Super Bowl.
To an extent, and I think it was that way is because we get so little of it.
Yeah.
We get so little of qualified experts taking people who don't really understand what they're talking about to the task from our perspective, that it kind of becomes like it wasn't so much a blood sport as it was a celebration. Like, yes, finally, somebody who thinks is saying what we've been thinking for years.
So I'm not, you know, I don't want to go overboard and just say don't. Okay, so enjoy it, but I think there have been some that are just too many dumpster fires. I couldn't take it. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I'll back up one cow on that. I think there is I think books are more helpful than debates, particularly internet debates. Actual professional moderated debates where people actually have to lay out ideas rather than spew garbage via Brandolini's law, those might be somewhat more useful than what we get on the internet.
Hey, someone gave you a thumbs up for joining.
Thanks, Patrick. Missed that one.
Although we were laughing one time, I said, hey, Emery, can you take over one of my shows when I had to take care of Mom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he said, hey, Sal, I don't know what's going on here, but when you stepped off, we lost half the audience. So
we did. You did. That's right. That happened. I remember that. Hey, I am in your face, direct, punchy. You're the nice guy. Like that. People come to watch for you. They don't come to watch for me.
All right. I'm just scrolling through here because I was trying to actually close the stream, but people keep chatting and I can't keep up. So, greetings, Mr. Bond. Okay, since George Bond is here, I'm gonna tell one of his jokes. What kind of clothes do kangaroos wear? They wear jumpsuits. That's a okay. All right.
I mean that it's a classic Aussie joke, but I'm sorry, maybe because I don't have kids, like dad jokes don't like roll with me. I don't know.
So I am trying to close the stream, but people just keep chatting and they make really good comments here. Thank you. Very good, Sal, about the doo-doo. Yeah, the 3D. I mean, really, I put it in my daily planner. It's like the 3Ds of success for you, Sal, is deal with the doo-doo. Because I tend to have an avoidance. I tend to avoid things that I don't like. I mean, that's just kind of human nature. And I keep trying to take that proverb to heart. God is trying to tell me, Sal, you got to deal with the doo-doo. And there's a lot of doo-doo in life that you got to deal with. But there's much strength in doing that. And, stuff started to get better in my life. Just as a personal note, there's stuff around the household that I had to get fixed, and it wasn't pleasant. I could either do it or call someone, and usually a combination of both. There's been a tendency on my part, and I'm just confessing to my brothers and sisters here. Sometimes I like to close my eyes to problems rather than deal with them. And especially the sort of problems that you can actually deal with and fix. But it's like, I'll tend to defer it. It's like, that I can fix that. But oh, I know why I'm confessing. It says in James 5:16, confess your faults before one another so that you may be healed. I found that when I publicly confess before my brothers and sisters something I'm dealing with, it's not that you're just humbling yourself before other people. You're humbling yourself before God. That is God's way of saying, okay, this is how you're going to humble yourself before God, and really show the Lord that you really mean it. So thank you for the encouragement. That's something I need to deal with the doo-doo. And there's a lot of stuff in my house, just little things that I've just let go that I need to take care of, like the dishes tonight. So, yes, stuff can pile up and it gets not so good. Debates are good to practice self-control and not much else. Too frustrating for me to watch.
Yeah, there's a reason I generally don't watch the debates, just as a general rule of thumb.
Yeah, and again, there are people that really like to argue, and it's like, yeah, maybe there's a place for that too. So I'm not, I don't mean to be casting down anyone else. I think the main thing is I'm speaking for myself. I'm going to limit these short format debates, but it actually does free me up to try to deal with questions. So all these viewer questions, it'll actually give me time. When someone asks a hard question, I really want to have time to think through it. And I want to do the topic justice. And I think everyone, things along the lines of Brandolini's law and having way too many people asking you questions for you to answer them and all. Sorry, you could tell I'm getting tired because I'm slurring my words. I've been really exhausted today, just doing a number of things just physically demanding. I actually did mow the lawn today. Snake made a bogus. Oh, welcome, Nephilim Free. Snake made a bogus statement in his debate tonight about fish to amphibian evolution. He said there are many transitional forms. That's truly false.
That's an oxymoron in the sentence. Truly false. I like it. I don't know enough about
I'm sorry I missed that debate. I had a quasi debate with Snake myself, and that was more fun because I spoke for every 5 minutes that I spoke, he only spoke 1 minute, so that was fun. That was by prior arrangement. It was more a lecture where they just had people there, someone there on the other side to just make a few comments. Oh, the life-changing power of the gospel by Dr. Michael Brown is the video. He put it out about 10 days ago, I'm guessing. So I guess there was some sort of thing about debate there. Oh, Wikipedia very harshly calls Expelled "No Intelligence Allowed" a propaganda film. I don't know how that got in there, but since it was mentioned, I was actually filmed, but I didn't make the final cut. The film that included me made the cutting room floor. It was because of the persecution that happened at George Mason University. Dr. Carolyn Crocker was essentially fired from office, and it turned out later in a documentary that was shown nationwide by Coral Ridge Ministries. I actually was on television there. That's my one one appearance on national TV, um, uh, just because she came to my intelligent design group. But really, thankfully, I mean, the focus was really on her, and it came out that George Mason bribed her law firm to drop her as a client. And the specific attorney that was representing her got fired from the law firm. He may not have ever gotten a job after that. I mean, Mason was playing hardball. From this point on, since they're my alma mater, I have never made a donation to that school, and I never plan to. I said, this is such a corrupt institution. I mean, there are good people there, which is a shame, because the bad behavior of some individuals casts a blight on the entire institution. So I just thought I'd mention that. A lot of my friends were in the movie Expelled. And so one of them was where I was going to go to school at Baylor. Yeah, so I've walked through some minefields. So, Emery, I'm glad you're being anonymous here.
Yeah, maybe once the master's program is done, and I'll come out of the closet, as it were. But yeah, I'm not about to spit out my correct identity, especially since I now have the internet TEs gunning for me, as well as the internet evolutionists. So, and the TEs are probably honestly more dangerous than the evolutionists. So,
I'm feeling that. You know, this is why I'm glad we had a conversation. I said, you know, we shouldn't be wasting our time with the atheists. We need to clean house. Mm-hmm. And I'm ready to challenge the TEs. And I don't know how to do it. Right now, it's just like I need to get information out, because I'm trying to point out the biologo stuff it's bad science. We don't, we can argue theology, but it's also bad science. And I may have a show on the paper Dr. Sanford and I wrote, because we took down some TEs. If we'd gotten published, even when we didn't, we still took them down a few notches, but we really wanted to get our nylon eating bacteria paper published. But CRISPR-Cas gave me a good point. He said, if you're criticizing someone who published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, a lot of editors just aren't going to touch that, even though Dr. Sanford and I did not mention ID or creation whatsoever. It was critical enough of the work of a National Academy member. It's like, yeah, he said it's his opinion that editors would not want to touch that. And I think there's another paper we're writing that's critical of another, something that got through the National Academy paper. I think I need to tell some people, I think our chances of getting published here is pretty low. Oh, someone did ask, Salvador, I forgot, I think it was Mindben. He said, Sal, did you get published? 2019, April 1st. And it's not an April 1st joke. It was the fact, you know what? Can I, before I close the stream, I'll give you a link. And there are some papers also, but I'm kind of afraid to say which venue right now, because they may do a retraction if they find out who I am. But it's already been published. But I'm not gonna identify it. I'm gonna let people dig around to find it. Now, if word gets around, it's like, well, okay, so I mean, this is public knowledge anyway. But yes, and there are things creationists can get published if they're not criticizing Darwin, but still doing otherwise good science, and that was the case here. Let me see if I could. I tried to type it in the side chat. There it is. This link will take you to. You'll see me with a bazillion other co-authors. It is the variable C terminal domain of human type 2 topoisomerases as a functionally relevant therapeutic target. And this year could be a banner year of such publications, and there could be more that are related to protein structure and protein function and bioinformatics and structural biology. So, and there's some in other fields too, but I'm going to be mum on those for now. I have received letters from the editor saying that my work was accepted, so I'm pleased to say that. Some things I'll be free to talk about, some that are still a little sensitive right now. So there you have it, Mindbend. That's one of my works there, and I think some of us has decided to publish in computational journals because there's a lot of biology that's computational if you're dealing with bioinformatics. And for those who watch my evolution, the transitionals versus evolutionism, and at the very end, I saved the worst for last. I talked about some of my structural biology work that combines bioinformatics with elucidating protein structure. That's where a lot of my work is in protein. So I'm a protein guy. Emery is a plant organismal guy. That's why sometimes we can't seem to talk the same language.
Yeah, we do speak different languages, Sal, because I'm talking about plants and animals and speciation and bioterminology, and you're talking about proteins and cell function, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, so we're about to shut the stream down now, finally, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining. But let me just a little bit of promotion for my work that actually might become a book. And I am working on small booklet projects. I don't think I want to write a 200-page book. I think I want to write a few 30-page booklets. So in that link is my explanation for the nested hierarchies, why God made them. And then kind of in the middle, I talk about protein biology. And at the very end, I go into the bioinformatics work that actually uses information theory and signal processing, which is, it's pretty intense. And I didn't cover it much because I think people's eyes would have gotten pretty glossy because it even puts me to sleep because it's pretty tedious. So I'm hoping to give more talks on protein biology, and I do have a list of things that people said that they were interested in as far as creation science. And then I'm pleased to say Sandy and we've been talking about what things in his specialty. So he'll come on our channel, and he has a doctor in ministry education, specialty in apologetics. So we'd be very privileged to have him. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun on this channel. I also, I'm going to try to make things more fun, by the way, because there's a lot of stuff that I talk about that's not fun, like chemistry, thermodynamics, information theory.
Sal, you can make chemistry fun very easily. Just bring in something that goes boom.
Yes, that sounds good. So, Emery, just update us on how busy you are. I really want to thank you for showing up on my show. I was reluctant to email you in advance because you've been so generous with your time to help the channel out.
I'm doing okay. I'm trying to get through everything. I've got a lot of stuff going on, but I'm working through it. And Mindbend just asked me a question, so I'm going to answer that real quick. When I say theistic evolutionist approach to scripture, their approach to scripture is Gnostic. Essentially what I mean is that they think that you have to have a scholar tell them what the scripture means when it comes to origins, and particularly a lot of times other places as well. You can't just read it and understand it for yourself. And this came out in my discussion with Sentinel Apologetics, which you can go watch on my channel. It went up last week. It's my most recent video, so if you want to go watch that. Although I will warn you, if you like Sal's approach, you may not like mine, because I'm a lot more aggressive than Sal.
Yes, that is true. You know what? I let you and John do some of the.
John is exponentially more aggressive than I am. I'm in the middle between the two of you. I can kind of I don't have John's level of attack dog, but I don't have your level of I can be nice to everybody even when I'm furious with them. So I'm trying to get there, but I don't know. We'll get whatever you say.
Well, I think God gives us all our gifts, and there's a role for us. There's a role for diplomats, and there's role for frontline soldiers. And, I'm just not very good at fighting. I'm just not,
Yeah,
I like arguing facts. That's kind of how I,
right.
I'm reluctant to argue theology. So, I'll express what I believe, but I don't like getting in theological debates.
Yeah. So the major difference between you, me, and John, Sal, is you don't like fighting and you try to avoid it wherever possible. I don't like fighting, but I won't run from one. John actively likes to fight. That's that literally right there in a nutshell is the three of us.
So, well, with that, there's a link to the Tuesday show, and I got this really cool picture of a Navy SEAL up in the Arctic, and just hanging out with Sandy. I get to hear of all of his adventures, and I get to learn a few things that are really kind of funny, like some of the songs that they sing as Navy SEALs. There's one that says "Bullet Sponge Marine." Bullet Sponge Marine. Like, what's that song about? And we're like, oh yeah, the Marines, they take lots of bullets, I just thought that was cute. Sorry. So when Sandy comes on, I'm going to have him sing some Navy SEAL songs, and I think we'll have a good old time. But we will talk to that's just a little, just a little humor to lighten things, but we will talk serious things, and the Taylor prism and how that archaeological find has helped Christians like myself and Sandy, especially Sandy. So, Emery, do you have any last thoughts before I shut it down?
No, I'm thankful for letting me come on, Sal. It's been helpful to me as much as it is to anyone else. So, thanks for letting me come on, and looking forward to talking to you again.
Likewise, and I'd like to thank all the viewers. God bless you. Have a good evening, and Lord willing, we'll see each other again at least Tuesday. I may have a show either. I may have shows on Sunday and Monday. They most likely will be pre-recorded, and they'll be science-oriented or something that would be pre-recorded. But I'd like to be able to join in the chat with you all. So God bless you all. Thank you all. I can't tell you what an inspiration and an encouragement you all are. I think we all need each other, especially in these troubled times. And so it's been an honor having the chance to serve you on this channel. But I'll tell you, it's been just as much a benefit to me to be with you all and to fellowship with you all. So take care, and God bless you. Have a good night.